Alright
guys, eyes up this way, we're gonna get started. So, our next unit is called a Trombloy unit. It is a French term for CVI. It is a drawing technique, and we are going to be doing pencil drawing for this. Alright, so really quickly, we're just going to look at a couple different artworks before we get into what it is that we're working on. So I have some Egyptian artwork up here. If you had a critique sheet in front of you with those elements and principles of art, how might you describe this artwork we're looking at right here?
My element sheets. Alright.
Step 1 and step 2 on a critique sheet. What might you say about these artworks? Thank you. Go ahead.
They have like a lot of, I want to say, form, and then it looks like they have a lot of texture too, like in the bottom one. Like it looks like you can feel it, and it looks almost like kind of smooth, but not at the same time.
Lena?
They're like made out of like shapes, not necessarily in there, just kind of like shapes.
Cut out shapes, yes.
There's lots of like value in the hair. Like it looks like it gets lighter to darker from like the back to the front.
What kind of colors do we see mostly?
Yellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Right.
Warm colors. Warm colors, somewhat natural like colors.
Is brown a warm or a cool color?
It can be either. Here it's kind of a
It's
warmer
neutral
color.
color.
Yeah.
It's like
I feel like the more orangish brown, it's more warm, but if it's kind of just like a bluish brown, then it's
Yep, because orange is a warm color, blue is a cool color. Do these figures look very realistic? Do they look three-dimensional?
no.
They're all cyclophones.
So you could describe them as being flat or two-dimensional. Yep. Why do they look flat and two-dimensional? What are they lacking?
Shadow. Value.
Wow.
Form.
Shadow, value, form. Correct.
Yeah.
Depth. Okay, so they're lacking all those things because there is not a light source. There is no light source here, so there is no changes in values, so there is no form. Everything is really flat and two-dimensional. All of the figures are in profile view, kind of three-quarter profile view. They're flat. All the animals are flat. All right, so as art progresses through history, artists learn new techniques to help make their art look more realistic and more three-dimensional. So at the top one here, we can see that they haven't quite figured out perspective yet, and things look a little wonky. We looked at this when we learned about perspective. It looks a little flat, whereas the one on the bottom, they have figured out perspective. It looks realistic. And talk about the people in this painting compared to the last one.
They have form and value, and they have like shadows coming off of them and like actual like body parts.
Yes, they have form, value, shadows. They're three-dimensional and realistic looking. Because there is a light source and is used accurately, yes. So what does this have to do with us? Yeah, we're not going to be creating pieces that look like this, but we know how to use perspective. In this project, we're going to learn how to use shading. Shading in different textures to make our artwork look realistic, yes.
Are we painting this project?
Just pencil drawing for this one. Yes, Finn.
Is that a painting or a drawing?
That is a painting.
That's a good question.
But check out the perspective and check out the use of value and the use of texture. It looks very three-dimensional. It looks very realistic.
And everything kind of goes to the corner and the back.
Yes, there's a sense of movement. It goes back here and then back here. You got it. All right, so like I said, Trompe L'oiel is a French term for deceive the eye or fool the eye. That is what this project is going to be called. It's a pencil drawing that is going to trick people into thinking it is three-dimensional. So, a couple things we're going to learn today. How do artists create works of art that effectively communicate or tell a story? How do we, as a viewer, read or understand work? And how do artists use tools and techniques to express their ideas? You've seen that bottom question before. Okay, we used pencils and rulers and perspective to create a realistic depth in our last project. We're going to use pencils in this project to create form using shading in different textures that are realistic. All right, Trompe l'oeil is an art technique involving realistic imagery in order to create the optical illusion that depicted objects exist in 3 dimensions. A paper is 2-dimensional, it is flat, but on this flat 2-dimensional surface, we are going to attempt to make our objects look 3-dimensional. Okay, so quick story time about painting similar to this. There is a king in this empire, and long ago, he loves his artwork, and he commissions artists to make his kingdom beautiful by painting artwork. So artist number 1 is hired by the king often, and they're going to have a little contest. So artist number 1 and 2 are trying to decide who can make a more realistic painting. They want to fool their viewers into thinking it's realistic. They want to create a trompe l'oeil. So artist number 1, often employed by the king, creates this painting. Artists 1 and 2 are working kind of side by side, but with curtains, so they can't see each other's work. They're keeping it a secret. So artist number 1 unveils his painting. Here it is. It's so realistic that a bird flies in and smashes its beak trying to pick off a grape. So artist number 1 says, "Aha, I have won. My painting is so good, I fooled this bird who thought my painting was real." Artist number 2 says, "Congratulations, well done. Why don't you pull back the curtain on my painting to unveil it, and we'll decide who the winner is." So artist number 1 goes over to artist number 2 workspace, goes to grab the curtain to unveil his painting, but there is no curtain. His painting is of a curtain, and it was done so realistically that he fools artist number 1 and is declared the winner. All right. So, yes, thank you. What's that?
What a plot twist.
Right? All right, so here is a Trompe l'oeil painting. A lot of these we're going to look at are paintings and not drawings because that is the typical medium that artists would have worked in during this time when Trompe l'oeil was really popular. So shadow and perspective is used. Objects that are going back in space get duller and they get smaller. You've got shadows here to create 3 dimensions. A typical subject matter of Trompe l'oeil paintings are items like books, desk items, things like that. These are pretty typical. So let's pretend that these 2 paintings, these 2 Trompe l'oeil paintings, are about a person. What might we be able to guess as viewers about the person on the left? What objects do we see?
I like hunting.
They like hunting. What objects do we see there?
A gun.
A gun.
Bird.
A bird.
Guitar.
On the left.
Violin. Oh.
On the left.
Trumpet setting. Horn.
Horn. A hat, a satchel, or a bag of some sort. 2 horns. Maybe I think that might be a knife sticking out of that bag here. So I'm going to go with Kylie's first guess that this person likes hunting. So we've used our previous knowledge of what these objects are and what they mean to take this guess. How about on the right? What objects do we have on the right?
A violin.
A violin.
They like
Horseshoe.
Horseshoe.
and horses.
They're
Door.
a rap.
Back up.
Music.
What? Anyone know what this thing is?
What?
This.
A dog house.
I don't know what it is.
I think it's something for like to
There's
clean the
a lot,
horses'
too.
shoes.
Oh,
Or like not their shoes, but like their
hooves.
There's a lot.
There's a lock. So maybe the person lives on a horse farm and they like music. Maybe they are a musician and a caretaker for the horses. All right, so what we do is we use our previous knowledge of what these items are and how they've been put together to take a guess about what this person might do or some of their hobbies. All right, so for your trompe l'oeil, what you're going to do is bring in a collection of items that represent you. Something about your life, your hobbies, a person in your life, your interests, things like that. So I've got a few more examples just to check out some more Trompe l'oeil paintings. So this is 1 point perspective. All of these lines go to a vanishing point that is somewhere here in the center. A more modern day example, Richard Haas, a contemporary artist, will paint Trombloy paintings on the side of buildings, so it appears you could walk up the steps into this building when in fact it is a flat building.
I'm sorry, I'd walk into that.
That top left one makes me think of that story about the curtains. So it is a flat building, but those curtains are painted pretty realistic to make it look like the building itself has been pulled back. Oops. Pretty interesting stuff. With just a little perspective and a little shading. So here is a picture from the side. We're going to view it from the front in a second. What shape is this?
Oval.
An oval. Does anyone know the other term for that?
The steam.
It's an ellipse. So when an oval is stretched out or a circle is stretched out, art becomes an ellipse. But check it out from the front. Now it looks like a sphere, three-dimensional. So Trombloys are usually, these kind anyways, are usually meant to view from one specific spot.
I'd like to walk around.
Somebody in the last class asked me if I'd ever seen the Trombloy sidewalk drawings that try to make people trip up.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a video here. We'll see in a second if it works this time.
Oh, that's scary. I
My
like,
heart would simply stop beating. The icicle one?
Oops. Did not work last period. We'll see if it does today. It does now. All right, very large scale example of a Trombloy painting. What's that? So they've got a vanishing point. All those pieces of tape right now are going to a vanishing point.
oh, it rained.
They've picked a light source. They're creating highlights and shadows. So light source coming from the left, shining highlight on the right. Pretty cool what you can do when you know how to use your tools appropriately. Alright, so we're going to learn how to use pencils to create different textures. We're going to work with value, we're going to work with shading, and we're going to work with texture so that we can create pieces to fool a viewer into thinking they're three-dimensional on our flat two-dimensional surface. So here you can see pencils used to make a smooth rose petal, a hard wood surface, a rough rope surface. That bottom right piece, that is a pencil drawing that looks incredibly realistic. So when we draw our objects, you're going to use another tool. You're going to use a grid to help you enlarge your objects. I think you guys do that in 7th grade with Mrs. Harvey,
Yeah.
where you draw lines on your drawing and then you enlarge maybe or copy each section one at a time.
Yeah, it made it like a lot easier.
So we're going to have, so tomorrow I'm not here, and that's the last class day you get to work on your collage. Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to do a little drawing competition here. We're going to choose some winners, and there's prizes at stake here. What we're going to do is we're going to draw some spheres. We're going to shade them and give them texture to see if we can make our spheres look three-dimensional. We're going to have winners for the most creative, the biggest range in value, the most texture, things like that.
Why are we critiquing our collage?
We're going to do that after break, just because so many people have been absent. We're going to give some people time to catch up. So here, these are just circles with a little bit of texture and a little bit of shading, but they all look different. Shinier, smooth, bumpy, rough, fuzzy, furry, hairy, crumbly. So all of those pencil techniques are going to help us in our pencil drawing. Here's some more examples. I don't have a ton of pencil examples until the end when we see some student examples here. But I really like this one here. It's got a guitar string, a couple concert tickets, a guitar pick. It makes me think that this person loves music. Maybe this is them remembering a specific show or time. So most pieces will have a theme. All the objects relate to each other. Here's another nice example. We've got feathers in an envelope, a couple postcards, a ticket from Yellowstone Park. So this person might be creating this piece as a remembrance of a vacation or a trip. So when you think about what you might want to draw for this project, it could be objects that represent one part of your life or objects that represent you in general. It is up to you, but you are going to be required to bring these objects into class. We will photograph them together. I will print out the photos, black and white, and then you will grid them to enlarge and draw from that.
How long will the objects have to stay?
The objects only have to be here for one class. So you bring them in that morning, you take the pictures, you take them home that afternoon.
Okay.
So, do we bring them in on Wednesday?
Yes, so we're going to take pictures Wednesday and Thursday while you're drawing. That is my hope, to have the pictures all taken before break. So you really can draw anything you want. I don't want, say you're into video games, I don't want you to bring in your gaming console, okay? Or something super expensive. But you're really into video games, bring in a controller. Bring in the case of one of your favorite games. You're really into a sport, bring in your cleats. Or an award from that sport, a ribbon, a medal.
Can I bring in my mitt and a ball?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. This project is probably the hardest project we're going to do this year. It will take the most attention to detail. But students usually tell me at the end of studio art that this is their favorite project. This is what they learn the most from. And this is usually some of the most successful projects. And Connor's over there nodding his head because he's done this before. So I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be a lot of hard work. But hard work usually results in a good payoff. So here's the thing. I don't want you to photograph and draw something from your backpack simply because you were too lazy to bring something in. We're going to be working on this for quite a few weeks, so I would like you to bring in objects that you really would enjoy drawing.
Can I bring in my dog?
No, but you could bring in a dog collar.
He's in a box. He's dead. Can I bring in his box?
I suppose.
All right.
So here we're getting into some student examples, okay? Here are some pencil drawings. Here are some objects, things that you could bring in, things that we could photograph and you could draw. So how do I read this artwork? This person is a varsity athlete. They've got their varsity letter. They're a runner. It looks like this is one of those running bibs. I don't know. I think that's what they're called. You can tell I've never run a race. They've got a medal and a couple ribbons. So I read this as a viewer. I use my previous knowledge of what these items are, and that's what I can guess this artist is trying to convey. Their love for running. Sean, question?
Can I bring in my dog?
A real dog? No. Unfortunately. I don't know.
I think I'm going to bring in my mitt and my ball.
No. Specific questions about what you can bring in, I will come around and answer in just a minute. Some more examples. This one is really detailed, but it's done really well because there's a lot of objects. There's a huge range in value, and there's some really specific textures. It looks realistic.
I have turtles.
Okay, I'll answer specific questions about what you can and cannot bring in a minute. Does anybody have any general questions about this project. So we're learning how to use artist pencils, which have a range in value. We're learning how to create a range in textures. We're going to photograph our objects. We're going to work from that picture to draw these objects and enlarge them. I do have one student example. I don't have many of these laying around because they're pretty successful. Everyone always takes them home. So this student might not have thought through their objects very well. It might have just grabbed things from their backpack. However, this person, this freshman boy who did this drawing, was not like the greatest artist to start with, but this is a beautiful pencil drawing. Everything's three-dimensional. There's different textures, there's different values, and it looks realistic. It almost looks like you could pick up this highlighter or pen or eraser. It's done really well. So this is something along the lines of what we're used to doing. All right, so you have 18 minutes left in class. If your collage is not done, that is what you're working on right now. If your collage is done, you're filling out your rubric to go with it. I am not here tomorrow. Those are the number 1 and 2 things you need to do tomorrow in my absence. When those 2 things are done, you could get a head start on your next sketchbook assignment. Okay? Those are your options for right now and your options for tomorrow. If you're brave and bold and want to practice sketching some objects like this, do that in your sketchbook assignment. All right, get to work.